The Vatican has been rocked by a shocking revelation they tried to keep hidden from the public eye for years. At 59, Pope Francis's own brother has exposed a bombshell, an autopsy report that reveals disturbing details about the Pope's health that the Vatican would have preferred to stay buried. The Vatican, known for its strict control over the Pope's personal matters, may have underestimated the power of this family secret. Why was this report kept in the shadows? What does it reveal about the Pope's declining health? And what was the Vatican's potential involvement in his care and image management? You won't believe the explosive details that are now coming to light. Stay tuned as we uncover the untold truth behind Pope Francis's health challenges and the Vatican's desperate attempts to manage its narrative. Pope Francis has long been a beloved figure for many across the globe, leading the Catholic Church with apparent humility and compassion. But behind the public image of a devoted religious leader lies a much darker, more complex truth. For years, the Vatican has managed to protect the Pope's privacy, especially when it comes to his health. However, one explosive revelation has recently surfaced, shaking the very foundation of what we think we know about Pope Francis. At 59, his brother, who's had a front-row seat to the Pope's life, has now come forward with a startling revelation that the Vatican never wanted you to hear. This shocking disclosure centers around an autopsy report, supposedly of a close family member, that exposes deep concerns about Pope Francis's health that were kept away from the public for reasons that are still unclear. Or are they? But why would the Vatican want to suppress this information? What exactly is in this autopsy report? And how does it change the narrative about Pope Francis's leadership and legacy? In this video, we're diving deep into the newly exposed details surrounding this situation, exploring the shocking attempt by the Vatican to keep it hidden. We'll also explore how this revelation sheds light on the Pope's potential physical and emotional struggles in the final years of his papacy. You won't want to miss the jaw-dropping truth that's finally come to light. For years, Pope Francis has been hailed as a leader who is not only spiritual but incredibly approachable, leading with warmth and personal conviction. He eschewed some of the traditional pomp and circumstance, opting for a more relatable image. But behind the scenes, there's been a much quieter and more complex narrative, one that has been skillfully hidden from the public eye, a narrative surrounding his health that has largely been kept under wraps by the Vatican. This is where things get intriguing. Pope Francis has been in the spotlight for many years, with the world watching his every move. But what most people didn't know is that during some of the more recent years of his papacy, his health may have been deteriorating in ways that were not visible to the public. His brother, whose bond with him has always been close, has been the one person with the most insight into his health struggles. While the Vatican continued to emphasize the Pope's vitality and determination to serve, behind closed doors the Pope may have been grappling with issues that were deeply personal and had a direct impact on his ability to carry out his duties. Why did the Vatican feel the need to keep these issues a secret? The answer lies in the image of Pope Francis that they've so carefully cultivated, a leader who is strong, resolute, and eternally committed to his role. Admitting to health complications could threaten that image, perhaps even leading to doubts about his ability to continue leading the Church. It's about maintaining the perception of unwavering strength and spiritual authority. But at what cost? But then things took an unexpected turn. After the death of one of the Pope's close relatives, brother, an autopsy report was released, a report that contained shocking revelations about Pope Francis's health. The Vatican initially fought to keep this information from being made public. But why? What exactly was in this autopsy report that they tried so hard to suppress? The answer lies in the true extent of Pope Francis's health struggles, something that may change how the world views his leadership in the years to come. The speculation has begun, with many wanting answers and information. Stick around because we're about to dive deeper into what exactly was concealed and why this revelation is such a game changer. The implications are far-reaching, not just for Pope Francis, but for the entire Catholic Church. The Vatican has long been known for its tight control over information, especially when it comes to the health of its highest-ranking officials. But the moment the information surrounding an autopsy report on Pope Francis's brother surfaced, the truth could no longer be kept in the shadows. The Vatican's carefully managed narrative about the Pope's health was about to face its most significant challenge. Was it a hack, a leak, or a deliberate act of defiance from within the Vatican walls? The question remains. So, what did this autopsy reveal that was so shocking? According to insiders, the autopsy report contains information that could explain why Pope Francis has been notably absent from public events in recent years. It paints a clearer picture of his health struggles and reveals something much more troubling than anyone could have anticipated. The autopsy report allegedly stated that Pope Francis's brother, who had been his closest confidant, had been in the know about certain health issues that were never disclosed to the public. These issues were not just minor ailments, they were serious and ongoing conditions that affected Pope Francis's day-to-day activities. The Vatican, in an attempt to shield the Pope's image and protect his legacy, chose to downplay the severity of these struggles. What is even more concerning is the timing of these health issues. The Pope's brother's passing brought the information around an autopsy report to the surface, and it became evident that Pope Francis had been dealing with health problems for longer than previously disclosed. This raises questions. Why did it take the death of Pope Francis's brother for this information to come to light? Was there an intentional delay, and if so, what was the motive? The report might reveal a series of serious health problems that Pope Francis had been battling in private. From chronic joint pain to severe gastrointestinal issues, the Pope's physical condition was deteriorating in ways that were carefully concealed from the public eye. But there's more. The report could also suggest that Pope Francis had been facing neurological issues that may have affected his ability to make critical decisions in recent years. This is where the speculation begins to intensify. Now, you might be wondering, why would the Vatican want to keep this information under wraps for so long? The answer lies in the Pope's symbolic role as a leader of millions. The Vatican feared that revealing the true extent of Pope Francis's health struggles could create a crisis of confidence among the faithful. If people believed that the Pope was too sick to carry out his duties, it could have devastating consequences for the Church's reputation and influence. But the autopsy report was not just a wake-up call for the Vatican. It was a turning point in the way we understand the Pope's papacy. The truth was no longer something that could be controlled by a carefully crafted image. This raises even bigger questions. Could Pope Francis have been manipulated in his decisions during his declining health? How much influence did others have over the decisions that affected the future of the Catholic Church? And, most importantly, what does this mean for the future of the papacy itself? As we continue to dig deeper into these shocking revelations, keep in mind that the Vatican's secrets may not be over just yet. In fact, there's still a lot more to uncover about Pope Francis's final years in office and what could have been hidden from the world. The Vatican's fear of a scandal is not just about keeping secrets, it's about controlling the narrative to maintain the trust and faith of millions of people around the world. When Pope Francis's health began to decline, there was a rising sense of urgency among Vatican officials to ensure that the Pope's legacy remained intact, no matter what the truth might be. The main goal was to protect their Pope. But what happens when that control starts to slip, and the truth emerges? The Vatican, for all its power and influence, has always been deeply concerned with image, perhaps more than many of its followers would like to admit. The Pope, after all, is not just a spiritual leader, he's also a symbol of the Catholic Church itself, and the Church has faced its share of scandals over the years. From child abuse cases to financial corruption, the last thing the Vatican needed was another scandal involving the Pope's health and the secrecy surrounding it. As Pope Francis's health deteriorated, officials within the Vatican began to understand the implications of the situation. How could they keep the faithful calm while one of the most significant leaders of the modern Church was potentially unwell? The decision was made to downplay the severity of his health problems and to keep the public in the dark about just how serious things had become. And in a shocking turn of events, the Vatican allegedly chose to rely on its most loyal allies, its most trusted insiders, to conceal this information. But here's where the story takes an unexpected twist. Despite the Vatican's best efforts to control the flow of information, the autopsy report made its way to the public, and the truth was finally exposed. What we thought would be protected had in fact become exposed. Now, the question on everyone's minds is, why did the Vatican go to such extreme lengths to hide this information? And, more importantly, what was it that they were so desperate to keep from the world? The details are not as clear as they may seem. When you start to look deeper, the answer begins to reveal itself. There's more than just Pope Francis's health at play here. The Vatican's efforts to suppress this information are tied to something far greater: the future of the Catholic Church and the Pope's role in it. The Vatican is aware that any hint of scandal could shake the Church's standing among its followers. But there's something more at stake here: the institution itself. In order to understand why the Vatican was so worried, we need to take a closer look at the Pope's true influence. Pope Francis, throughout his papacy, has made sweeping changes that have reshaped the direction of the Catholic Church. From his views on social issues to his calls for reform, the Pope has often bucked tradition in favor of modernizing the Church. But these changes haven't been universally welcomed. Many factions within the Church have opposed his stance on issues such as same-sex marriage, women in leadership roles, and environmental activism. The thought of a weakened pope who might not be able to carry out his duties fully was a fear that some factions within the Church could use to challenge his reforms and regain control. This internal struggle within the Vatican itself made the stakes even higher. As Pope Francis's health issues became more evident, his enemies within the Church could have seized the opportunity to push back against his vision. The Vatican may have realized that they could no longer afford to risk revealing the true extent of his health struggles. Doing so could have led to a collapse in trust and possibly even the reversal of the progress Pope Francis had made during his papacy. But here's where things get even more complicated. The autopsy report is not just a reflection of the Pope's health but also a window into the forces at work behind the scenes. Was Pope Francis's decline accelerated by external pressures? Were there political motivations that influenced the way his health was managed or even manipulated? There are whispers within the Vatican that certain factions, whose interests conflicted with Pope Francis's vision, may have had a role in the timing of the health cover-up. Could these groups have known about his declining health earlier than the public did and used that knowledge to further their own agendas? This is where the story begins to take on a darker tone. What did those closest to Pope Francis know, and how much of this was part of a calculated attempt to protect the Church's image? What's clear is that the Vatican's reaction to the Pope's health decline was far from ordinary. The closer we look into it, the more it seems like the Vatican might have tried to prevent the public from seeing a pope who was vulnerable and potentially unwell. The autopsy report, as shocking as it is, may only be the tip of the iceberg. What lies beneath is a web of secrets, power struggles, and deep concerns about the future of the Catholic Church. The Vatican's attempt to bury the truth about Pope Francis's health is not just about shielding him. It's about ensuring that the very foundation of the Catholic Church remains unshaken in the face of growing doubts and controversy. The real question, however, is, what happens next? Will Pope Francis continue his papacy in light of this revelation? Or will it force a shift in the way the Church is governed? And, more importantly, how will the faithful respond when they learn the full extent of what has been hidden from them? The information surrounding an autopsy report was officially hidden for months, revealing what people thought and wanted the public to know. While Vatican officials did everything they could to control the narrative, the document that surfaced may have had a different story to tell. What information was so significant that it would cause mass hysteria within the Roman Catholic Church? And this wasn't just about the physical state of Pope Francis's body. It was about the alarming medical circumstances and the history that had been kept under wraps. But what exactly did the autopsy report reveal, and why was it so significant? What details could damage the reputation and image of the Roman Catholic Church? What's truly unsettling is the fact that the Vatican's response to the Pope's declining health wasn't just about keeping the public unaware of his condition. It was also about hiding the details of his potential medical history. The details could reveal that Pope Francis had been suffering from multiple health issues, some of which had been well known within the Vatican but had never been made public. The most shocking of all, his condition had been deteriorating for years, yet the Vatican continued to downplay his health issues, creating a false sense of stability. One of the most stunning revelations of the autopsy report could have been the true extent of Pope Francis's potential struggle with mobility issues. His inability to walk unaided, which had been potentially hidden from the public, was far worse than many had believed. The Pope may have been relying on crutches for months, yet, at public events, he appeared to be standing and walking with ease. This cover-up not only caused confusion among the faithful but also made his potential physical decline seem less urgent than it truly was. What the public sees may not be what's going on behind the scenes. The report also detailed a series of potential medical conditions that, at best, had been only lightly mentioned in the media. Pope Francis may have suffered from a variety of illnesses that, in hindsight, painted a picture of someone struggling to maintain the facade of strength. From frequent hospitalizations for respiratory issues to an increasing need for specialized care, the report made it clear that the Vatican could have known about these health challenges for quite some time but kept them a secret. Perhaps the most chilling discovery, however, was the nature of the Pope's underlying medical issues. The autopsy report may have revealed that there were multiple instances where Pope Francis had been given treatments that were not immediately disclosed to the public. These included medical procedures that were intended to improve his quality of life but were performed without transparency to the masses. Some medical experts suggest that these procedures may have been more than just precautionary, perhaps indicating that Pope Francis was grappling with a more serious condition than initially suggested. But why wasn't the public made aware? It's important to note that, for an institution as powerful as the Vatican, appearances matter perhaps more than reality. The Pope's declining health wasn't just a medical issue, it was a matter of institutional power and influence. If the Vatican's leadership and the Pope's condition were to be exposed too soon, it could lead to a loss of control over the Church's direction and its followers. This is why the Vatican went to great lengths to ensure that the public remained unaware of the true scope of Pope Francis's potential health struggles. But here's where things get even more complicated. The autopsy report may have also suggested that there were external factors that may have played a role in the Pope's potential deterioration. Some sources within the Vatican suggest that the stress of managing the complexities of the Church, coupled with internal opposition to his reforms, could have had a detrimental effect on his health. Was there a deliberate effort to wear him down? Or was this simply a result of the immense pressure placed on his shoulders? The Vatican's potential secrecy is raising even more questions than answers. If the Pope's declining health was kept secret for as long as it was, what else might the Vatican be hiding? How much more is the public unaware of when it comes to the truth about the Pope's medical history? And what does this mean for the Church moving forward? The answers will remain a mystery and topic of speculation, unless more details or information are revealed in the future. Here's where things take a turn. It's possible that some factions within the Church had personal motives to ensure the Pope's health remained a private matter. As a Pope who had pushed for more transparency and reform within the Church, Pope Francis was a controversial figure to those who sought to maintain the status quo.